So a while back, an idea was born in my head that I want to take pictures with ultra large format camera, and I want to use it for portraits mainly. And the medium would be photographic paper. So I'll basically be creating paper negatives, which then later they would be made into positives by contact printing. So given the fact that such camera costs a lot of money, I decided to build my own. How hard could it be? Well, it's not easy. If you want to make quality product, it's not easy. And I didn't make quality product. But nevertheless, I wanted to share with you what I built. So the first picture I started off with a cassette. I call it a cassette, which is a film holder or paper holder, and it's just a rectangular piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and I'm lining the edges with 1/2-inch wide pieces of 1/4-inch plywood, and those are the guides for the paper. So the area between those is 11 by 14. Next, you can see I'm putting gluing wider pieces of plywood onto the narrower ones, and this is to create a channel for the paper to slide. And you can see close up of the edge. Another picture with a close-up. And here I'm putting more narrow pieces on top, and this will create a channel for the dark slide. And what this is the little flap on the bottom that's normally found on foam holders, and this thing is going to be hinged with hinge tape. Here you can see I'm staggering plywood, and this is to create a light trap. This is a close-up of the flap, and I'm gluing additional pieces of plywood to it. This is a wider view of the same flap. Now here I'm gluing the last pieces for the track for the dark slide. As you can see, I'm using paper clips, heavy-duty wide paper clips to clamp the pieces down. Here you can see the channel for the dark slide, and it's about 1/4-inch thick, which is the thickness of the plywood. And here's more staggered plywood, and like I mentioned before, this is for the light trap. Now this is the bottom flap already in place without the top piece yet, but it's there. And here's a top piece glued to it. As you can see, the cassette is taking its shape. Now here I tried to stick a piece of 1/4-inch piece of felt in the slot to create light tight seal, but after I tested it with the dark slide, it would just destroy the felt, and glue would stay there, it would be all over the place. So I decided against it and I pulled it out. Here's the completed cassette with the dark slide inserted. I originally thought I was going to use plywood dark slide, but then the fit was too tight, so I just opted for a thick black plastic piece. And let's start a camera build. I'm starting off with the rear standard, and the materials I'm using are just scrap pieces of pine that I found off of an old crate that was sitting around, and I busted it open and I removed some screws, some nails from it, and without much dilly bobbing, I decided to just glue them together, see what happens. And this is the rear standard with the cassette in its place, just to get me the feel for the fitment. And I decided to put it on the side for now and start with front standard. So I'm using the same pieces of scrap pine for the front standard. And then I went back to the rear standard, or the back standard, whatever you want to call it. And I put 3/4 by 1 inch pieces of pine inside, and that will create groove for the bellows, and that will create groove or the wall for the cassette to press against. Then after I put a cassette in, I realized that the light can still hit the cassette from the back and it might cause some issues. So I made a channel using 1/2 inch pieces of pine, and you can see that created a wide channel for the cassette. Now the cassette is in place and it's looking good. Here's another picture of the cassette being inserted or removed, I don't know what. Front standard needed the same type of groove or channel or wall, so I did the same thing with a front standard. And here are two pieces side by side, and it's starting to take on its shape. Now for the lens board, I just used scrap 1/2 inch piece of plywood, and I drilled a round hole to fit my lens. Now a little bit about the lens. The lens is nothing special. This is just a 15-inch lens, f10 from an old process camera that I had somebody gave me a long time ago. Here's my semi-round hole, and the rectangular frame glued to the piece of plywood is actually a light trap. Now it's time to buff it all up and to make sure it's not sharp or rough, there aren't any splinters. So I'm using a pneumatic buffer here, and I'm spraying it with trusty Rust-Oleum black flat spray paint. Here are the pieces spray painted and ready for the bellows. The frame in the middle is what's going to become a glass frame, a ground glass frame. Here's a glass ground frame, and I'm using pieces of 1/4 inch plywood and I'm attaching that to the glass frame, and the ground glass will sit on these pieces. And here I'm buffing the ground glass, and I'm using standard 1/8 thick glass. It's not tampered, just standard glass. And I bought some silicon carbide buffing compound 400 grit, and I started buffing that by hand. But it was taking a really long time. And then I decided to take the grinding glass plane, which is the small glass, attach it via double-sided tape to my pneumatic buffer, and just went ahead with it. So here's a picture of completed ground glass. It may not be super perfect, but it was good enough in my eyes. So I decided to stop there and insert it into the frame. Now the camera, I wanted the camera to be sitting on a table, but then again, I don't have a table like that in my home studio. So I decided to make a monorail camera. So I took a scrap piece of aluminum square tubing, 1.25 by 1.25 inch, drilled a hole for the tripod mount, and here you can see in this picture that the front and rear element, front and rear standard, are mounted on the rail via these homemade brackets, which is nothing but a square aluminum tubing cut to 2 inches length and welded onto a piece of flat aluminum. Now for the bellows, obviously the bellows cost a lot of money, and I didn't want to put any in, or as little investment as I had to. So instead of making a real bellows, I was actually inspired by someone making a huge 24 by 20 camera, and they posted on the internet that they used foam core to make their bellows, and it worked really great. So I decided to go ahead with foam core and made 2 rectangular boxes, and I just stuck them into the rear and front element. Here's a completed camera, and as you can see, the front bellow is larger and the rear bellow is smaller, so that the rear bellow slides into the front. The reason behind it was if the light shines on the front, so the subject is sitting in front of the lens, the light shines on it. The light doesn't go under the rear bellow and into the cassette. It will actually travel above the front bellow, and there's no way for it to get into the cassette or to mess up my exposure. At least that's the theory, and we'll be testing the practical side of it pretty soon. Now here I decided I just couldn't wait anymore, so I decided to test it on anything. So I just found the worthy subject, which is a bottle of spray adhesive used for attaching photographs to mat boards, or backing boards. So I put that on a piece of toilet paper and I lit it with 1000 watt quartz bulb because that's all I had available at that particular moment. Normally I'll be lighting my subject with 500 watt studio light. And this is the setup, and here is the image that I'm seeing on the ground pass, and it's fairly bright for given the fact that the lens is f10 at 3/4 extension. That's like what, f50 maybe. So there. I'll be testing the camera on real life subject, and I'll be actually developing paper negatives, so that I hope to do that in the next couple of days, and I'll take you on that journey as well so you can see how that's done. So until then. Hello photography fans, and welcome to another episode about classic cameras and classic photo gear. However, today we're not talking about classic cameras. Well, actually we are indirectly, but not directly. What you have in front of you is a homemade camera. Yeah, that's right. It is a it's a 11 by 14 homemade large format camera. And it's gonna show you the details a little bit in just a bit, but I just wanted to film the general setup, which basically includes my camera, my trusty subject matter, stuffed dog, and the lighting, which is lighting is Smith & Victor photography constant light with 500 watt bulb, and I'm just using it directly. This is just for testing, and what I'm doing right now is testing the camera. So what I did, I already set it, I already focused it, and seems spot on. It takes some time to get it right, but you know, once it's the right, I guess we're good to go. So let me show you more. My subject is lit with this monstrous 500 watt bulb. There you go. And this is the camera. This is the camera we're using. It's a homemade. The bellows are just foam core boxes put together, and this whole thing was built by me in roughly about 3 weeks time, because I only had 30 minutes a day on my lunch break to build it, and it's very rough looking camera, but I hope it will produce some images today. So let me hop under the dark cloth, and you can see what's cooking. Alright, so we're in a makeshift bathroom, makeshift dark room which is even smaller than my previous place. But you know, if you want to do something, you do it. So what I'm gonna do is get the paper, and I'm shooting 11 by 14 Cantmere paper, which is Ilford brand, I believe. Yes, it's an Ilford brand, Harman brand. So I'm gonna shoot that. It's is it luster? Is it? Yeah, it's a luster paper. I'm shooting that, and this is the cassette, guys. This is the homemade cassette. So pull the dart, slide out. Now this is the flap. There you go. That's how it hinges. I'll put it here, and I'll turn the viewfinder so I don't fog or mess up the paper. All right. Let's get this paper out. Get one sheet. There we go. And we're going to be developing in Kodak Dactyl 1 to 4 at temperature close to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Or to those that like to complain about me using American standard, then I will be or English, I'll be developing in roughly 20 to 21 degrees Celsius. So let me load this cassette. This is the, this is homemade stuff, so it's not always easy, but hey, if you want to do something, nothing is impossible, remember. Alright, paper's in place, make sure that it's the right side up. Pull the darks one in, or in the dark slide. There you go. Alright, let's go back to the camera. Takes a picture. Okay, so we took the meter reading, and at f10, which is wide open lens, the exposure is 4 seconds at ISO 4, which is ISO I rated the paper at. Now, that's with the lens at infinity. With the lens being extended as much as it is, it's actually at 40 inches. The bellows are at 40 inches. So we're adding additional 3 stops. So 4, 8 has 1 stop, 16, 30-second exposure. So we'll be doing 30-second exposure, and then we'll be heading over to the bathroom to develop the paper. Okay, let's load the cassette. The lens is closed, so I'm going to remove my ground glass. Put the cassette in. What I'm going to do is a wedge. To wedge the cassette in so it doesn't walk around. And I'm gonna use something. I'm not really prepared for all this stuff here. Alright, what I'm gonna do is cover the cassette portion of the camera. I'm gonna remove the dark slide. Cover the camera and the cassette so there's no light leaks. I'm going to grab my timer. Set it at 30 seconds. And then I'll remove the homemade lens cap. Everything on this camera is homemade. 30 seconds. Get ready, little buddy. See what happens. Never built a camera before. Alright, moment of truth. I got the chemicals set up. I'm gonna wear rubber because protection is important. I'm gonna pull this sucker out. See what's here. Who knows? Oh, easy, buddy. Who knows? Could be nothing, or it could be something. So you can see. I tested the cassette prior to this. Something's here. Alright. I'm gonna let this cook. It seems like there are no light leaks, at least from where I can tell. I'm gonna let this cook for a few more seconds. This is 1-4 dilution. Or should I just say, the developers diluted 1-4. It's a Kodak Dectol. Old Kodak Dectol. I had it, I don't know, since last year. Haven't used it. It's so good. Alright. Now to water stop bath, where the developer's gonna be it's just air conditioning. The development process is gonna be stopped here. This is an RC paper, so it's rather quick. You don't need to soak it for too long. Stuff gets done. Alright. And off to the fixer. And I'm using Kodak fixer. It's a paper fixer. I have to put some more. Here, buddy. Have some more. I'm going to let that fix for a few minutes. I think 2 minutes should be sufficient for this test. And I already see the depth of field in this camera is really, really shallow. We're talking shallow. So we'll see how that turns out, and I'll take a picture of it and I'll turn it into a positive, so at the end of the video you can see the result.